Dr. Alex Rivera never thought his boring job would lead him to the stars. He was just a regular guy who loved old books and ancient languages every day. He would sit in his small office at the university, reading dusty papers and trying to figure out what people wrote thousands of years ago. Alex wasn't like other professors. While his colleagues gave exciting lectures to huge crowds, Alex preferred quiet corners of the library. He was the guy people called when they found weird symbols carved into rocks or painted on cave walls. Most people thought his work was pretty dull, but Alex loved solving these ancient puzzles. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning in September. Alex was drinking his usual coffee and grading papers when his phone rang. The voice on the other end was serious and official. They said they were from something called the Global Space Initiative, and they needed his help right away. At first, Alex thought it was a joke. Space, him. He could barely figure out how to use the coffee machine in the faculty lounge. But the person on the phone wasn't laughing. They told him about something incredible that had been found buried deep in the desert. A team of scientists digging in the Sahara had discovered something that shouldn't exist. It was a crystal-like object, about the size of a small car, covered in symbols that no one could understand. But here's the weird part. Whenever people got close to it, the thing would start glowing and making sounds. The scientists tried everything. They brought in experts from around the world, computer programs, language specialists, even code breakers from the military. Nothing worked. The symbols looked familiar, but they didn't match any known writing system. That's when someone remembered Alex and his weird hobby of reading really old stuff. When Alex first saw pictures of the crystal, his heart started beating faster. Some of those symbols looked just like ones he'd seen in his research. They reminded him of ancient cave paintings he'd studied years ago. These weren't from any civilization he knew about, but something about them felt familiar. The government people were desperate. This crystal thing had been sending signals into space for months. Radio telescopes around the world were picking up the transmissions. Whatever this object was, it was trying to talk to someone out there, and recently, those someones had started talking back. Alex found himself on a plane to a secret facility in Nevada. The place looked like something from a movie, with armed guards and scientists running around everywhere. In the middle of it all sat the crystal, beautiful and terrifying. At the same time, it pulsed with soft blue light, and when Alex got close, he could swear he heard something like music. Working day and night, Alex began to crack the code. The symbols weren't random. They told a story about visitors from far away who had come to Earth long ago. They had met the first humans and taught them things. But most importantly, they had left this crystal as a message for the future. The message was clear. We will return when you are ready. 3 months later, that return happened. Telescopes spotted something approaching Earth from the edge of the solar system. It was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built, and it was clearly not from around here. The world's leaders made a decision that changed everything. They would send a ship to meet these visitors. Not a warship, but a peaceful vessel called the Harmony. It would carry diplomats, scientists, and translators. And because Alex was the only person who could read their ancient symbols, he was going to. Alex had never been on a spaceship before. Actually, he'd never even been on a regular airplane until a few months ago. As the Harmony lifted off from Earth, Alex pressed his face against the window and watched his home planet shrink away. Below him, his stomach felt funny, and not just from the zero gravity. The other people on the ship were impressive. There were military officers with serious faces, diplomats who spoke 12 languages, and scientists who had studied space their whole lives. Alex felt like the odd one out, in his wrinkled shirt and thick glasses, while everyone else looked confident and prepared. Alex just hoped he wouldn't embarrass the entire human race. The alien ship was nothing like what anyone expected. Instead of cold metal and sharp edges, it looked alive. The hull curved and flowed like a giant sea creature, and strange lights moved across its surface in patterns that almost looked like breathing. As they got closer, Alex could see that the ship was enormous, easily 10 times bigger than anything humans had ever built out inside his small cabin. Alex studied his notes and tried to prepare for what might be the most important conversation in human history. He had no idea that the small birthmark on his shoulder, a mark he carried his whole life, without thinking much about it, was about to change everything. The mark looked like a simple star-shaped pattern. His grandmother used to say it meant he was special, but Alex had always figured it was just one of those things grandmothers say. He never paid much attention to it, except when people asked about it at the beach. As the Harmony approached the alien vessel, Alex felt nervous and excited at the same time. He was just a quiet guy who liked old books, but somehow he'd ended up as humanity's translator for the most important meeting in history. He had no idea that in a few hours, everything he thought he knew about himself would be completely wrong. The adventure was just beginning, and Alex was about to discover that sometimes the most ordinary people are chosen for the most extraordinary things. His quiet life of reading ancient symbols was about to become something beyond his wildest dreams. The moment Alex stepped onto the alien ship, he knew he wasn't in Kansas anymore. The floor beneath his feet felt warm and soft, almost like walking on living skin. The walls around him pulsed with gentle colors that shifted from blue to purple to green, creating patterns that seemed to dance just at the edge of his vision. Captain Rodriguez, the mission leader, looked just as amazed as Alex felt. The tough military officer, who never showed emotion, was now staring around like a kid in a candy store. Dr. Chen, their lead scientist, was frantically taking notes on everything she saw. But Alex couldn't focus on taking notes. He was too busy trying not to trip over his own feet. The aliens had sent a small group to escort them deeper into their ship. These beings moved with a grace that made Alex feel clumsy by comparison. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with long arms and legs that seemed to bend in ways human limbs couldn't. Their skin had a pearl-like quality that reflected the ship's changing lights, but what struck Alex most was their faces. They weren't scary or monstrous like in the movies. Instead, they had large, gentle eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. When they looked at the human visitors, Alex saw curiosity, not hostility. It was like being examined by very polite, very intelligent cats. The group walked through corridors that curved and twisted in impossible ways. Alex began to suspect that this ship wasn't built. It was grown. Everything had smooth, organic curves. There were no sharp corners anywhere, no bolts or welds. It was like being inside a massive living creature that had been hollowed out and turned into a spaceship. They entered what could only be called a meeting room, though it looked nothing like any conference room Alex had ever seen. The space was circular, with a domed ceiling that showed what looked like a view of deep space. Stars twinkled overhead, and Alex wondered if they were looking at real space or some kind of projection. The alien delegation was waiting for them. There were maybe a dozen beings arranged in a loose circle. Most wore flowing garments that seemed to be made of the same light-producing material as the ship's walls. But one figure stood out immediately. She was clearly their leader. Where the others had simple clothing, she wore something that looked like it was made of liquid starlight. A crown-like structure rose from her head, not metal, but what appeared to be living crystal that pulsed with soft light when she moved. It was with the confidence of someone who had commanded others for a very long time. Alex felt his knees go weak. This was it, first contact between humans and aliens, and he was supposed to help everyone talk to each other. His translation devices suddenly felt very small and inadequate in his sweating hands. The alien queen, because that's clearly what she was, stepped forward and began to speak. The sounds that came from her were like nothing Alex had ever heard. It wasn't exactly music, but it wasn't just talking either. The translator box in his hand buzzed and whirred, trying to make sense of the alien language. After a few moments, words began to appear on his screen. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear enough. She was introducing herself as Zarathel, which the computer suggested might mean something like Keeper of the Eternal Flame or Guardian of the Sacred Light. Captain Rodriguez stepped forward and introduced the human delegation. Alex tried to look professional as his name was mentioned, but inside he felt like hiding behind Dr. Chen. These beings were so advanced, so graceful. What could a simple language professor possibly offer them? The conversation started well enough. Basic greetings, expressions of peaceful intent, questions about each other's worlds. Zarathel's people called themselves the Velter, and they came from a star system so far away that their light hadn't even reached Earth yet. Alex was starting to relax a little. The translation software was working better than expected, and the aliens seemed patient with the slow pace of communication. He was even beginning to enjoy himself. When disaster struck, the meeting room was warm, much warmer than the human ship. Alex had been wearing a long-sleeved shirt, but the heat was getting to him. Without thinking, he rolled up his sleeves to cool down. It was such a simple, automatic gesture. He'd done it thousands of times before, but the moment his right shoulder became visible, everything changed. The entire alien delegation went silent. Not just quiet, completely, absolutely silent. Even the soft humming of the ship's systems seemed to fade away. Alex looked around nervously, wondering what he'd done wrong. Every alien eye in the room was fixed on his shoulder. More specifically, on the small star-shaped birthmark he carried there his whole life. The mark was about the size of a quarter, with 5 points and a small circle in the center. His grandmother had always said it looked like a compass rose, pointing in all directions at once. Zarathel's large eyes widened, and she made a sound that the translator couldn't process. It was too complex to fill with emotion. Her hands moved to her chest in what looked like a gesture of surprise or shock. Then, to Alex's complete amazement, the alien queen began to lower herself toward the floor. Her movement was slow and deliberate, full of ceremony. She went down on one knee, her head bowed in unmistakable respect. The other aliens immediately followed her lead. One by one, they all dropped to their knees. The proud, advanced beings, who had traveled across the galaxy, were now bowing to a nervous college professor from Earth. Alex stood there in complete shock, his mouth hanging open. Captain Rodriguez looked like someone had just told her that gravity had been canceled. Dr. Chen dropped her notebook entirely. Alex managed to croak out, his voice barely working. What's happening? Zarathel raised her head, and Alex could see something like tears in her large eyes. When she spoke, her voice was filled with wonder and reverence. The translator worked overtime, producing words that didn't make much sense. The marked impossible, chosen one, bridge between worlds, blessed by the ancients. Alex looked down at his ordinary birthmark, the same mark he'd seen in the mirror every day for 32 years. His grandmother's voice echoed in his memory. That mark means you're special, little one. For the first time in his life, Alex began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, his grandmother had been right about more than he'd ever imagined. The silence stretched on as Alex tried to process what was happening. He was just a guy who read old books for a living. He got nervous ordering pizza over the phone, and somehow, these incredibly advanced beings were treating him like he was the most important person in the universe. He had a feeling his quiet life was officially over. Alex sat in the alien meeting room, still trying to wrap his head around what had just happened. The most advanced beings in the galaxy were kneeling before him, and all because of a birthmark he'd never given much thought to. His hands were shaking as he stared down at the simple star-shaped mark on his shoulder. Zarathel slowly rose from her kneeling position, but her eyes never left Alex's birthmark. She spoke in her musical language, and this time the translator seemed to work much better. The words came through clearly. We never believed we would see one again in our lifetime. See one what? Alex asked, his voice cracking slightly. He felt like Alice falling down the rabbit hole. Except this hole led to outer space, and apparently involved him being some kind of chosen one. The alien queen gestured for everyone to sit. The floor somehow formed comfortable chair-like shapes that rose up to support them. Alex had stopped being surprised by the ship's living technology, but Captain Rodriguez still looked amazed every time something like this happened. Your mark, Zarathel said, pointing at Alex's shoulder. It is the sign of the world bridge. We have not seen a true bearer in over 3,000 of your years. Dr. Chen leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her shock. What exactly is a world bridge? Zirathel's expression became thoughtful, almost distant, long ago. When your species was young, my people visited your world. We were explorers then, traveling from star to star, seeking to understand life in all its forms. Alex felt a chill run down his spine. You've been to Earth before. Yes, she nodded. Your ancestors were remarkable. So young, yet so full of potential. We spent many seasons among them, learning from each other. Your people taught us about courage and creativity. We shared knowledge of the stars and the deeper mysteries of life. The translation devices were working perfectly now, as if the aliens had somehow improved them during the conversation. Alex wondered if that was even possible. Then remembered he was sitting inside a living spaceship and decided anything was probably possible. But why the mark? Captain Rodriguez asked. What does it mean? Zarathel stood and walked to one of the walls. She placed her hand against it, and suddenly the surface became transparent, showing images that moved like a movie Alex saw early. Humans living in primitive villages, but among them walked tall, graceful figures that were clearly Velter. We knew our time on your world was limited. Zarathel explained. Our duty was to explore, not to interfere with natural development. But we also knew that someday, when your people were ready, we would want to meet again as equals. The images showed Velter scientists working with something that looked like the crystal Alex had helped translate back on Earth. But this version was smaller, more delicate. We created the World Bridge program, she continued. Certain humans volunteered to carry a genetic gift forward through their bloodlines. The mark you bear is not just a symbol, it contains actual instructions, written into your body's code. Alex looked down at his birthmark with new eyes. Instructions for what? For building bridges between worlds, Zarathel said simply. Those who carry the true mark have abilities that make them natural diplomats, able to understand and connect with other forms of life. Dr. Chen was frantically taking notes. But how is that possible? How can a birthmark contain genetic information? Your science is beginning to discover this, Zarathel replied. What you call DNA can be modified to carry information across generations. We simply added a few extra sequences to certain bloodlines. Alex felt overwhelmed. His whole life, he'd thought he was just good at languages because he enjoyed puzzles. Now he was being told that his abilities were literally programmed into his genes. By ancient aliens? How many people have this mark? He asked. Very few, Zarathel said sadly. Perhaps 1 in 10 million of your current population. Most carry dormant versions that never activate. You are the first we have encountered with a fully active mark. Active? Alex squeaked. What does that mean? Instead of answering directly, Zarathel approached him slowly. May I? She asked, gesturing toward his shoulder. Alex nodded nervously. When her finger touched his birthmark, something incredible happened. Suddenly, Alex could feel what she was feeling, a mixture of joy, reverence, and ancient sadness. He could sense the emotions of every Velter in the room. But more than that, he could somehow understand the ship itself, feeling its contentment and curiosity about its human visitors. Ho, Alex whispered, pulling back from the contact. The sensations faded, but he knew something in him had changed permanently. The mark is awakening. Zarathel explained, being near our technology, and our people is activating abilities that have slept in your bloodline for thousands of years. Captain Rodriguez looked concerned. Is this safe? Are you changing him somehow? We are changing nothing, Zarathel assured her. We are simply awakening what was always there, like teaching someone to use muscles they never knew they had. Alex stared at his hands, wondering what other surprises his body might be hiding. What am I supposed to do with these abilities? What world bridges have always done? Zarathel replied, help different peoples understand each other. Your species stands at a crossroads. You can join the greater community of worlds, or you can remain alone. A world bridge can help ensure you make that choice with full understanding of what it means. The weight of responsibility settled on Alex's shoulders like a heavy blanket. A few days ago, his biggest worry was grading final exams. Now he was apparently humanity's key to joining some kind of galactic federation. What if I'm not good enough? He asked quietly. What if I mess this up for everyone? Zarathel's expression softened, and for a moment she looked almost motherly. Despite her alien features, the mark chose your bloodline for a reason. Your people's courage, creativity, and determination. These are gifts that will serve you well. Trust in what you are becoming. Dr. Chen looked up from her notes. What happens next? Zarathel said, Alex must undergo the trial of awakening. Only then will his abilities fully manifest, and only then can he truly serve as a bridge between our peoples. Alex swallowed hard. He had a feeling the trial wasn't going to be like any test he'd ever taken in school. But looking around at his fellow humans, and at the alien beings who had traveled across the galaxy to find him, he knew he had to try. After all, how hard could it be? Alex spent the next 3 days trying to wrap his head around everything he'd learned. The filter had given the human delegation comfortable quarters on their ship, and Alex found himself staring out the window at the stars, wondering how his life had gotten so crazy so fast. Captain Rodriguez kept checking on him every few hours. You okay in there, Professor? She'd ask. Alex would nod and smile, but honestly, he wasn't sure if he was okay or if he completely lost his mind. Maybe both. The worst part was the waiting. Zarathel had explained that the trial of awakening required special preparation. The ship needed to reach a certain location in space, and Alex needed time to get used to the changes already happening in his body. And changes were definitely happening. Alex had always been pretty good at reading people's moods, but now it was like someone had turned up the volume on everyone's emotions. He could tell when Dr. Chen was excited about a new discovery just by walking past her room. He knew Captain Rodriguez was worried about him even when she was trying to act tough. Most weirdly, he was starting to understand the ship, not like talking to it exactly, but more like sensing its feelings. The ship seemed happy to have human guests aboard. It was curious about them, the way a friendly dog might be curious about new visitors to the house. On the third day, Zarathel came to see him. It is time, she said simply. Alex's stomach did a little flip. Time for what exactly? Nobody's really explained what this trial thing involves. Zarathel's expression was gentle but serious. The trial of awakening is different for each world bridge. The process reads your genetic code and your life experiences, then creates challenges designed specifically for you. Challenges? Alex squeaked. What kind of challenges? Are we talking pop quiz or fight a monster kind of challenges? Nothing that will harm you, she assured him, but you may find it intense. The trial must unlock abilities that have been sleeping in your bloodline for thousands of years. This cannot happen without some difficulty. Great, Alex thought. His grandmother had always said that anything worth doing was hard work, but he'd never imagined she meant unlocking alien superpowers. The trial chamber was in the heart of the ship, deeper than Alex had been before. As they walked through the corridors, he noticed that the walls were getting brighter, pulsing with more intense colors. The ship was definitely excited about something. When they reached the chamber, Alex's breath caught in his throat. The room was enormous, with a domed ceiling that seemed to stretch up forever. But what really got his attention were the crystals. Hundreds of them filled the space, ranging from tiny gems no bigger than his thumb to massive structures taller than buildings. They hummed with energy, creating a sound that was felt more than heard. The whole room vibrated with power. This is where we awaken world bridges, Zarathel explained. These crystals contain the combined knowledge and experience of our people. Going back thousands of years, Alex gulped. And I have to do what exactly? Simply touch the central crystal and let it guide you. The trial will show you visions of the past and possible futures. You must navigate these visions and make choices that will determine how your abilities develop. In the center of the chamber stood a crystal unlike any of the others. It was perfectly clear, about the size of a small tree, and it pulsed with gentle white light as Alex approached it. He could swear he heard whispers coming from inside. Captain Rodriguez and Dr. Chen had been allowed to watch from a safe distance. Alex looked back at them. trying to draw courage from their presence. Captain Rodriguez gave him a thumbs up, and Dr. Chen nodded encouragingly. "Remember," Zerathel said softly, "trust your instincts. The mark chose your bloodline for a reason." Alex took a deep breath and placed both hands on the crystal. The world exploded. Suddenly, Alex was flying through space and time, watching the history of the universe unfold around him. He saw stars being born and dying, planets forming and evolving. He witnessed the first meeting between humans and Velter thousands of years ago. But these weren't just images. He was experiencing them. He felt the wonder of the early humans as they learned about the stars. He experienced the difficult decision of the Velter to leave Earth, knowing they might never return. Then the vision shifted, and Alex was seeing possible futures. In some, humanity joined the galactic community and thrived among the stars. In others, fear and misunderstanding led to conflict and isolation. He saw himself in many of these futures, sometimes succeeding as a bridge between worlds, sometimes failing. The most intense vision came last. Alex found himself standing in what looked like a vast library, but instead of books, the shelves held glowing orbs of light. An ancient Velter appeared beside him, so old that his skin was almost translucent. "Choose," the ancient being said, gesturing at the orbs. "Each contains a different aspect of the World Bridge gift. You cannot have them all. You must select what your people need most." Alex looked at the thousands of orbs, each one humming with potential. Some seemed to offer the ability to speak any language instantly. Others promised the power to sense truth from lies, or to calm conflicts before they started. One particularly bright orb seemed to contain the ability to understand any form of life, no matter how alien. But as Alex studied the choices, he realized something important. The most powerful abilities weren't necessarily the most useful. What humanity needed wasn't someone who could do everything, but someone who could help them understand that they didn't have to be afraid of being different. Alex reached for a modest-looking orb that glowed with steady, warm light. The moment he touched it, he understood what he had chosen. It was the gift of empathy, not just the ability to sense emotions, but to truly understand why others felt the way they did. It was the power to see past fear and differences to the common ground beneath. The vision faded, and Alex found himself back in the crystal chamber. But everything was different now. He could feel the emotions of every person in the room, human and alien alike. But more than that, he could understand why they felt that way. Captain Rodriguez was proud of him, but worried about the responsibility he now carried. Dr. Chen was fascinated by what she'd witnessed, but concerned about the implications for humanity. Zerathel felt a mixture of joy and sadness. Joy that the World Bridge abilities had awakened successfully, but sadness for the burden Alex now carried. And Alex himself? He felt changed in ways he couldn't fully explain. The scared college professor was still there, but now he was something more. He was a bridge between worlds. Someone who could help different peoples understand each other. "How do you feel?" Zerathel asked gently. Alex looked around the room, sensing the hopes and fears of everyone present. For the first time since this whole adventure began, he felt like he might actually be able to handle what was coming. "Different," he said honestly. "But good different, like I'm finally becoming who I was always supposed to be." Zerathel smiled, and Alex could feel her relief and satisfaction. The trial was complete, and humanity's world bridge was ready for whatever came next. 3 weeks after the trial of awakening, Alex found himself sitting in what used to be the most important meeting in human history. Now it just felt like Tuesday. The negotiations between Earth and the Velter had been going amazingly well, and Alex knew it was partly because of his new abilities. When the human diplomats got frustrated with complex alien concepts, Alex could sense their confusion and find simpler ways to explain things. When the Velter seemed puzzled by human behavior, Alex could help them understand the emotions behind the logic. But the real breakthrough had come when Alex realized that both species were basically worried about the same thing: being misunderstood. Humans were afraid the aliens would see them as primitive and worthless. The Velter were concerned that humans would view them as invaders or threats. Once Alex helped both sides see these shared fears, everything became much easier. "So let me get this straight," said Admiral Thompson, the head of Earth's negotiation team. "You're offering to share medical technology that could cure cancer, extend human lifespans, and eliminate most genetic diseases, and in return, you want permission to build research stations in our oceans?" Zerathel nodded gracefully. "Our people have always been fascinated by water worlds. Your oceans contain life forms that could teach us much about adaptation and survival. We would study, not harm." Alex could sense the Admiral's amazement and suspicion in equal measure. The man had spent 40 years in the military and deals. That seemed good to be true usually were. But Alex could also feel Zerathel's sincere desire to help humanity while learning from them. "Admiral," Alex said gently, "they're not trying to trick us. Their people genuinely believe that knowledge should be shared freely. It's one of their core values." Dr. Chen looked up from her tablet. The technology they're offering could solve most of humanity's health problems within a generation. The ocean research stations would be completely underwater and wouldn't interfere with shipping or fishing. "But that's not even the biggest part," Alex continued, feeling excitement from both the human and alien delegations. "They're inviting us to join something called the Galactic Alliance." Admiral Thompson's eyebrows shot up. "Come again," Zerathel smiled. An expression Alex had learned meant she was pleased to share. "Good news. The Alliance is a confederation of 43 worlds. We share knowledge, protect each other from threats, and work together to explore the universe. Earth would be the 44th member." The room fell silent. Alex could feel everyone trying to process what this meant. Humanity wouldn't just be making friends with one alien species, they'd be joining a community that spanned the galaxy. "What would be expected of us?" Admiral Thompson asked carefully. "Primarily, you would contribute what makes your species unique," Zerathel explained. "Your creativity, your resilience, your ability to adapt quickly to new situations. These are rare gifts in the galaxy." Alex sensed pride from the human delegation. After feeling small and primitive compared to the advanced Velter, it was nice to hear that humans had something valuable to offer. There would also be opportunities for exploration, Zerathel continued. Young humans could study on other worlds, learn new technologies, experience different cultures. And we would need ambassadors like Alex to help establish relationships with other Alliance members. Alex felt his stomach do a little flip. He'd been so focused on the current negotiations that he hadn't really thought about what came next. "Other Alliance members?" "Oh yes," Zerathel said, and Alex could sense her amusement at his surprise. "The Vilter are actually quite ordinary compared to some Alliance species. There are beings made of living crystal, others who exist partially, in multiple dimensions, and one species that communicates entirely through changes in gravitational fields." Alex's head started spinning. He'd barely gotten used to talking to one type of alien, and now he was hearing about dozens more. Captain Rodriguez spoke up. "What kind of time frame are we looking at for all this, for the medical technology and ocean research stations?" "We could begin immediately," Zerathel replied. "For Alliance membership, there is a process. Earth would need to establish formal diplomatic relations with at least 10 member worlds and demonstrate your commitment to peaceful cooperation. And that's where I come in," Alex said, finally understanding his role in all this precisely. Zerathel confirmed, "As Earth's first world bridge, you would serve as humanity's primary ambassador to the Alliance. You would travel to different worlds, meet with various species, and help establish the relationships necessary for membership." Alex looked around the room at the faces of his fellow humans. Admiral Thompson looked excited despite his attempts to remain professional. Dr. Chen was practically vibrating with curiosity about all the scientific opportunities. Captain Rodriguez seemed proud but concerned about the challenges ahead. "It's a big responsibility," Alex said quietly. "Yes," Zerathel agreed, "but you would not face it alone. I have requested permission to serve as your guide and mentor during your first years as an ambassador, if you're willing to accept my help." Alex could feel the genuine friendship and respect behind her offer. Over the past few weeks, He'd grown to trust Zarathel completely. The idea of exploring the galaxy with her guidance was both terrifying and incredibly exciting. "When would this start?" he asked. "The Alliance Council meets in 6 of your months at the Hub, a massive space station at the center of Alliance territory. If Earth wishes to apply for membership, that would be the ideal time to present your case." Admiral Thompson leaned back in his chair. 6 months to decide the future of humanity. No pressure there. Alex could sense that the Admiral was actually thrilled about the possibility, despite his joking tone. This was the kind of opportunity that came along once in a civilization's history. Over the following days, the details were worked out. Earth would get immediate access to Velter medical technology and would allow the construction of 3 underwater research facilities. In return, Alex would begin his training as an interstellar ambassador, and Earth would start the formal process of applying for Alliance membership. On the final day of negotiations, Alex stood in the observation deck of the Velter ship, watching Earth slowly rotate below them. It looked so small and fragile from up here, but he knew it was about to become part of something much larger. Zarathel joined him at the window. Having second thoughts, she asked gently. Alex could sense her concern for him, her genuine care for his well-being. It still amazed him that this powerful alien leader had become such a good friend. "Sometimes I can't believe this is really happening," he admitted. "A few months ago, I was just a guy who taught ancient languages. Now I'm supposed to be humanity's voice to the galaxy." "You were always meant for this," Zarathel said firmly. "The mark, your abilities, your compassion for others, these things didn't happen by accident. You were chosen for this role long before you were born." Alex touched the birthmark on his shoulder, still visible through his shirt. His grandmother's words echoed in his memory. "That mark means you're special, little one. I just hope I don't mess it up," he said. Zarathel's hand touched his shoulder gently. "The fact that you worry about doing well is exactly why you'll succeed. The galaxy is full of beings who think they know everything. What it needs is someone humble enough to listen and learn." As their ship prepared to depart for the Hub, Alex took one last look at his home planet. When he returned, he would bring with him the invitation for humanity to join the greatest community in the galaxy. It was a big responsibility, but for the first time in his life, Alex felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The quiet professor who loved dusty books was about to become humanity's bridge to the stars.